E.
That works. That's the same key.
I know, that's why I did it.
Oh, well, you're so smart.
I'm on it.
You are the brains. You are the brains of the outfit. Yeah, that doesn't really leave me with much since you Thanks. But I can carry equipment well.
You two are the brains and the bush. All right, shall we? Oh.
That would help, I think.
This is incredibly loud.
Monitor. Let's see if we can get rid of some of that. This is Bruce, actually.
I know.
Steve, can I plug in? People are still coming in. That would be a bad choice.
Well, good morning. We are glad that you are here this morning, especially as we're feeling a little sleepy. How about the rest of you? You know, we live on Central Time. So that's going to mean that you're going to need to help wake us up a little bit with a little bit of grooving and moving. So we're going to start with some singing today. I invite you kind of wiggle your body around. And I know some of you are still getting your coffee and kind of settling in. Come on and join us when you're ready and able. All right, we're going to sing a little bit about light on this cloudy day. And about the light that we're bringing. So it goes like this. Well, it's going to go like this. Yeah, do we, can you advance the slide for us, maybe? Thank you, Steve.
He's like, where is Bruce?
Yeah, where's Bruce? Okay. All right.
Paging Bruce.
All right, we'll try this. Here we go. A shadow's all around me. Starless is my night. And now that love has found me, yeah, I'll be living in the light. A day and night, shine a bright, bright light. Bright be the light of God. Sing that again, will ya? A day and night, shine a bright, bright light. Bright be the light of God. Yeah, you got it. All right, next slide. Here we go. Waiting for the sunrise to come and fill the sky. I can see the sunshine when I look into your eyes. A day and night, shine a bright, bright light. Bright be the light of God. Oh, a day and night, shine a bright, bright light. Bright be the light of God. All right, we are walking in the light of God. 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 All right, let's add in those harmonies. Ready? We are singing in the light of God. We are singing in the light of God. We are singing in the light of God. We are singing. Let's just hear your voices. Ready? We are singing. We are singing in the light of God. We are singing in the light of God. Yes. We are singing in the light of God. We are singing in the light of God. A day and night, shine a bright, bright light. Bright be the light of God. Whoa, whoa. Day and night, shine a bright, bright light. Bright be the light of God. All right, you're sounding well this morning.
If I suddenly startle, it's because I just woke up.
Oh, that could be.
This is from the Psalms, and it's never too early for a little healthy competition.
I thought you were going to say it's never too early for the Psalms.
It's never too early for the Psalms either.
Okay.
Yeah. Or a little healthy competition. So we're going to have one side of the sanctuary, one side of the congregation learn one part, and the other side learn the other part. I'm noticing that there are more people on this side, which in the way I'm facing is the left side, than there are on this side. I don't know if we lean a little left or what, but there are more people over there. So they have a slight
that's right.
advantage.
They've got me.
That's what I was going to say. Great minds think alike. It's a Jedi thing. Yeah.
You said it's a Jedi thing in church. That's funny.
So, folks on this side, I'd like to teach you the first part, and then I'll come over here and teach you. You can rest up for a moment and drink your coffee. All right, or you can sing the first part too, because then you'll know both parts if you want to go use it in your church. The first part goes like this. Just listen once. Let me hear your steadfast love in the morning, for in you I put my trust every morning. Let me hear. That's the whole song. Nice and easy for the morning. Want to give it a try? Let me hear of your steadfast love in the morning, for in you I put my trust every morning. Let me hear. Nice. For this time in the morning, you sound great. Or any time of the day, I guess. All right, fine. Got a little like, what does that mean over in this corner? All right, so let's do that one more time, and then we're gonna go to the other half of the congregation. Are you ready? You ready?
I'm singing this with you, right?
So, yes, same part.
Okay, yes, I'm
We're
ready.
still on this one.
Yes, I'm ready.
Let me hear
Of your steadfast love in the morning, for in you I put my
trust
every morning. Let me
hear. All right, so you folks on this side can take a break while we go and teach the other part to the other half. Your part is a little higher, and I understand that's more of a challenge in the morning, early in the morning, but not much higher. The good thing is that you have fewer words to learn, right? Because you just repeat the same thing twice. So the trickiest part of your part is that you don't start on the downbeat. So it's like, 1, teach me the way that I should go. 1, for to you I lift up my soul. 1, teach me the way that I should go. 1, for to you I lift up my soul. Can you sing that high? All right, give it a try. Coming in on 2. And this noise coming out of the speakers. You ready to try it again? And teach me the way that I should go. For to you I lift up my soul. Teach me the way that I should go. For to you I lift up my soul. All right, now we're getting somewhere. All right, so the way this works is we're going to sing these two parts at the same time, and we're going to see who can sing their part the loudest. So I spent a lot of time in church camp where volume matters much more than pitch. As long as you're basically in the same key as the rest of us, right? We're more interested in volume than pitch. So, what I'm going to ask is that if you are comfortably able, that you rise and get some breath under you. And I am going to ask you to face your competition. So I'm going to ask you to face the other side of the sanctuary. So, this...
You mean your brethren in Christ?
Yes.
Yes.
Your siblings in Christ. So this is a great way to help your congregation hear themselves, right? If the congregation is not used to being able to actually hear themselves sing, turning them toward each other is a great way to do that. So, Andrew is going to lead the second part, and I'm going to lead the first part, and we're going to see how it goes. So, remember, folks, in the second part, come in on beat 2. Are you ready? Are you ready? All right, here we go. And let me
Teach me the way
steadfast
that I should go.
in the morning.
In the morning, my soul. Teach me the way that I should go.
Every morning.
To you I
Every morning.
lift up my soul.
All right, that was not bad. That was pretty good. I can still hear Andra more than any of you, though. So,
I have a microphone.
you have a microphone. It's not a fair competition. So, just belt it out. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Let me hear of your steadfast love in the morning, in the morning. For in you I put my trust every morning, every morning. Let me hear, let me hear, let me hear. A little harmony now. Let me hear, let me hear, let me hear. Come on, add your own harmony part. Let me hear, let me hear. Well done. Please be seated. She's coming.
Good morning. Thank you. I know this is an early morning, and we appreciate you getting us awake and ready for the day and ready for the work that we have to do together. Thank you so much. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Reverend Joyce Wheeland. I'm the pastor here at Northwest Christian Church, and on behalf of Northwest Christian, welcome. We are delighted to have you here. It does a pastor's heart good to see the sanctuary this full, so thank you for giving me that gift. This is wonderful. I'm just going to offer you a couple of logistics, and then I will get out of your way. If you were not with us last night, I will share with you that restrooms are right across the hallway, men's and women's. There are signs identifying them. There's a gender-neutral restroom down the hallway. If you go out the sanctuary, down the hall, it's about halfway down on the left, and again, there is a sign there. We are both an open and affirming congregation, and we are a green chalice congregation, so we take very seriously our commitment to our Earth's creation. To that end, the green disposable-looking coffee cups are compostable, so I would ask that you please don't throw those in the trash. There is a cart, or there will be a compost bucket out by the coffee. I would ask that you just place those on the cart so that we are able to do our composting of those later. You will also notice that a few of us have these yellow Ask Me buttons. If there's anything that you need during the day, please find me or someone else that has one of these buttons and let us know. We want your stay to be as comfortable as possible. And again, welcome. It's a delight to have you here.
Good morning, church.
You know, Alan, I look at these people, lovely, and I say, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Some of you know that one of my favorite phrases is, yes, yes, yes. Say it with me. Yes, yes, yes. Because that's what we're doing together.
Absolutely.
Not only in this event, but in our life, really. And this morning, it's our great privilege to share a little bit more about that. If you're just arriving today, I should say, I'm Dave Long Higgins, honored to serve as the conference minister for the Heartland Conference of the United Church of Christ, which is all of the UCC congregations in Ohio, 1 in West Virginia, and 8 in Northern Kentucky, across the river from Cincinnati.
And I'm Alan Harris, and I am the regional pastor and president for the Christian Church in Ohio. And last night I was chided for not telling how many congregations we have.
Oh.
We have 139 congregations across the state of Ohio. And we are divided up, not divided, we are grouped into 15 districts with regional elders in each one of those districts. And they do an amazing amount of work on my behalf. So thank God for our regional elders. So maybe I have made up for last night.
Absolved. Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah.
One of the reasons we are doing this, in my humble estimation, is because we are living into a partnership that was agreed to many years ago. How many of you all are aware of the ecumenical partnership between the Christian Church Disciples of Christ and the United Church of Christ that was agreed upon by both our General Assembly and the General Synod of the United Church of Christ in 1989? I will tell you, by this point, Dave, I would have expected every region and conference to be meeting together. Maybe not every time, but regularly. But it's okay. We're doing it. We're here. And if we model that to some other regions, then may it be so.
Yeah.
But a very important part of that ecumenical partnership is how we work together, particularly around the issues of ministerial standing. And I'm proud to say, as we talked about last night, we have a rich and supple interaction between our two denominations here in Ohio and Northern Kentucky, so that we do work with our clergy and lay leaders in a very positive way.
Yeah. You know, as we were anticipating being, I'm getting a little bounce back. Bruce, I wonder if we can pull the sound down just a little bit. Maybe that's just me and the ringing in my ears. Collaboration, cooperation, mutual partnership. Some words that frame our life. But I think the word that precedes all of those actually is love. You know, you can sign things on the dotted line and do formal agreements, but it's the love that makes them real, yes? It's the love that makes it real. And the way in which we live into our love matters, because we're called to be incarnate people of the love of Christ in the life of the world, yes? So what we're about, really, is living into this call of love, really. And it does have some tangible expressions. Last night, of course, we had Reverend Dr. Jack Sullivan, who I think is in the house somewhere, and he's with us. And we're privileged in a number of ways in that.
Absolutely. And we didn't say it, but we do hope that each of your congregations understands that you are part of the Ohio Council of Churches, and we would love for you to participate in that. It's not just a denominational thing. It really is, we want local churches, because as you heard what Jack said last night, they are doing some amazing and powerful things. So please, become a member of the Ohio Council of Churches personally. Craig and I are, and we hope that your congregations will support the Ohio Council of Churches.
Before we get into some of the specifics about our region and conference, we do also want to celebrate and say again with great gratitude to Dr. Pramanik for her preaching yesterday for us all, and will you again honor her presence with just a little applause, and thank you. You know that the Common Global Ministries Board has been one of the longest-standing, tangible expressions of the work that we do together. And one of the things is that sometimes happens, I don't know in the disciples, but I know in the UCC, is out of sight, out of mind. And when we're together today and yesterday, we are having the great privilege of having our global ministry partners with us. We'll hear from Reverend Dr. Lamarco Cable as our preacher for closing worship today. And I just wonder if any of the other global ministries connected folks, if you're serving on the Common Global Ministries Board or have been a GMI, a Global Mission Intern, in any way connected with Common Global Ministries, would you just stand
or
and just
ever have
or ever have
Disciples, overseas ministries,
any time, yeah,
any of that,
yeah,
you've ever been connected?
Yes.
And I will tell you, nothing thrills one of our ecumenical partners when they are on their home leave to be invited to a local congregation to share some of the powerful things that they do in their network. So please, when you hear about that, make sure that you give an invite. One of the other things that has happened on a denominational basis is that we actually have met together. No, not as a region and a conference, but in our general expressions. So the General Synod and the General Assembly have met twice together. How many people were in St. Louis in 1994 at the Joint Assembly Synod? There are a few of us. And how many of us were in Kansas City? I believe that was 2000. Mm-hmm. So may our tribe increase. May we do that sometime again soon. So wanted to lift up that some things are happening.
Absolutely. More locally, we have for a long period been working together in our interim ministry efforts, especially around our interim ministry training, which has been happening at Camp Christian, this lovely site that you all have had and that we're delighted to share in now. And so here comes a shameless plug. We just want to be honest about this, okay? We have interim ministry training October 6th through the 10th, coming up next month. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this is one of the best trainings out there that we offer. And those of you who've been part of it, I'm seeing some head nods, so I don't think...
Raise your hand if you've ever been to an interim ministry training of the UCC disciples. Excellent, excellent.
And here's the thing. This is not just training that's good for folks who are considering interim ministry, although it's very important in that regard. I think it's good training for ministry. We both have talked about this. There are just some pieces that we cover in this work that make it a wonderful refresher. So if you're a pastor and you're thinking, ooh, what might I invest some time in to sharpen my skills, get some renewal, I think this is a great way, we both do, to consider that as a way of growing.
And even if you can't make it to the interim ministry training, or you've already been, we have bi-monthly interim ministry calls via Zoom where we support one another. We talk about what interim ministry positions are open, and we just share some best practices and just good old-fashioned love on each other.
That's it. One of the challenges in this season, as we all know, is isolation and loneliness. And that space, I think, provides just another way that we can overcome that and really bridge what can otherwise be some really significant gaps relationally. As we heard yesterday, another piece of our expression of our shared ministry has been our disaster response ministry, which is growing in some really significant ways, moving from just buckets and kits, as you heard from Kevin yesterday, to what's the spiritual care of people who've been traumatized in times of disaster? How do we begin to tend to more of the totality of the reality of disaster response? So this is a really significant new thing that we're living into, and additional trainings will be forthcoming. But our hope is to really develop teams that are ready to be able to respond in a trained way when these kinds of things arise.
Is Kevin Garrett still in the room? He mentioned last night that if you brought kits or buckets, we have some trailers to put those in. You may have not heard that Camp Christian has now become the depot for our common kits. So we have a place for those. And I might mention one of the most recent efforts that we did together was in Dayton following the tornadoes several years after, because we learned that a lot of disaster recovery happens with the immediate tragedy, but then one of the things that had been left undone was that a lot of low-income apartments were still unfixed. So people who were on the lower end of the economic spectrum had a harder time getting back on their feet. So we sent delegations there for quite a number of months, working with Global Hope, with the UCC, as well as with Week of Compassion, and did a lot of great work in Dayton, years after the tornado, but still very important work.
Yeah, long-term recovery work, absolutely. Well, we have a history, as you know, of working together in outdoor ministry things and shared camps, and that's going to increase as we go forward. Disciples, partners may not be aware that we unfortunately are needing to sell our campsite, Temple Hills. But with each closing comes some new openings, and we will be in our UCC business meeting, but we won't all be together at that point. We'll be talking about what that looks like. But significantly, some of our camps will be at Camp Christian next year. And frankly, we're delighted by the opportunity that is, and also the generosity of spirit that you disciples, siblings are offering to us. So a word of really deep appreciation for that way of helping us move into a new chapter in terms of outdoor ministry.
It won't be completely new to us because we have done partnership camps for our elementary kids together, UCC and Disciples, for some years at both Pilgrim Hills and Temple Hills. But we are thrilled to be able to welcome you.
Yeah.
And we make no presumptions other than the fact that we're good friends, and you've got some great camps that we don't offer, and we've got some great camps that you don't offer.
Exactly.
One of the ways out is a couple of years ago, we both of our outdoor ministry groups agreed to share promotion, and your wonderful communications coordinator developed this poster. I hope you saw it up
Here's
in your
Castor
church.
right here. Yeah.
What's that? Cassidy, right? Thank you so much. And it was color-coded. It had QR codes. Really, all you had to do was put your phone up, and you could register for MAD Camp, or you could register for CYF High School Conference, or you could register for the LGBTQ Out Camp, all with one poster. So we have some experience with that.
Absolutely.
But we're going to live into that in a little more fuller way, I think.
It's no secret that we live in a different season in church, yes? We don't have the levels of staffing that we used to have, right? But the wisdom of our life has not gone away. And so what we're needing to do is inhabit a different way of engaging ministry that draws the wisdom that exists and connects it in ways that are meaningful, powerful, encouraging, and equipping. And so we want to spend just another moment about sharing about networks
Before
and
we
their
go
development. Oh, did I miss something?
Yeah, just a couple other things. We're doing even more already.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got several events that we have been planning together. And this isn't just, we'll have one of your speakers and we'll call it a shared partnership.
Yeah.
We've actually been at the planning table together. Adult conference in this very space. The year before, we did have a couple of wonderful leaders guide us. It's kind of like Christian education for adults for a chunk of a week. We've reformatted it so that it meets people's schedules better. But this next year, adult conference will be June 22nd through 27th in this space and shared with the local hotel. But that is a chance for us to kind of grow together in
Absolutely.
a very powerful way.
Absolutely.
We've also done International Affairs Seminar, which for disciples is a long-standing tradition. Every 2 years, not counting COVID blip, we take a group of high school youth to Washington, D.C. and to New York City, and we invite our youth to, there's one of our leaders back there, Jonathan Bradner. We invite our youth and the adults to connect faith and public life in a healthy way. We meet with our representatives in Congress. I will not tell you, I started crying when I saw these young people in their suits and ties and skirts and sitting there talking one-on-one with the representative from their Senate or their representative from the House and feeling exactly like they should, equals with that representative. And we talk about all the issues around that and try to do education. Oftentimes it's around immigration and refugee status. And then the final thing that we've already been doing together is our clergy spiritual life retreat. This last year we planned it, and we had a magnificent opportunity to bring in one of the other stellar singer-songwriters, almost, Carrie Newcomer. So Carrie Newcomer came in and helped us deepen, as clergy people, deepen our spirituality through song. So just needed to make sure we named some things.
Thank you
we've
so
been
much.
doing.
Alan just experienced what Beth experienced for like 25 years when I was co-pastor with her. Thanks for getting me back on track. So, yeah. So networks. Vocational discernment, clarity, and engagement. What's my call? What is the call of our congregation, any of our congregations? What is our call together, and how do we live into it ever more robustly around any of a number of things? It's been a vision that's been developing in our life together in the Heartland Conference, and now is stretching beautifully to be a shared thing that we're working on together. We all know that there are many urgent things that call us as Christians in the life of the world. We can't do them all, any one of us. But as a body, we can tend many different things. And this is one of our ways in which we are seeking to do that, in very deliberate ways. We all know that COVID was very challenging, of course. One thing it did for us, though, is it normalized meeting on Zoom. As much as we may have hated it, that was the reality. And now when I say, yeah, let's meet by Zoom, folks say, okay, let's schedule it, right? It's not a, what's Zoom, at least for most.
Right.
Yeah. And so out of it, because we have that platform, we've been able to gather people across the wide geography that we are in a shared space around things that matter.
Some of these are natural for disciples who have not had networks before to do. You'll see in the list some that clearly make some parallels. Some of them we are not doing but would love to do, and in fact probably ought to be doing. So today's networking time, which will happen after our keynote, is not, I really want you to see, is not an extra. It's not just a substitute for workshops. It is central to what we are doing here today. And that is, we believe these are so important. We want you to take time to learn about the different networks. You'll have a chance to kind of move around and talk with people about those networks. And if you want more information, you can ask. If you want to be a part of that network and to engage in some level, this is the day to do that, because we think this is a perfect place for two denominations that are so similar as the United Church of Christ and the Disciples of Christ to work better together. So when we move to that networking time, I hope you will take it very seriously. It's at the core of what Dave and I want out of this joint event.
Yeah. So, Alan, why don't you get us started in terms of maybe as we kind of...
the UCC has their Pro-Racial Equity Network, which is a natural fit with some conversations that we have with our Pro-Reconciliation Racism Commission, which both of those are supple and doing some really great work. We've already talked about our Disaster Response Network, and we can do more in regards to that. You might talk about...
Yes, so last year at our annual gathering, the conference voted for us to become a WISE conference. So that's welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged around issues of mental health. And so we have a mental health and accessibility network, and that's gathering individuals and congregations who are committed to cultivating spaces where the conversation and engagement around mental health can be an open and genuinely rich engagement for us.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, we also have a harm reduction and overdose prevention network. You may know that the three, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, are the three of the top 5 states for opioid overdose deaths in the country. And so our harm reduction network has developed a congregational curriculum because it can be hard to know how do we get into this work in a meaningful way. That curriculum is online, it's free, and it's available to all of us, okay? And it's excellent, developed by our network.
The next two networks are really easy for us to connect. There's an LGBTQIA network in the UCC. We have open and affirming congregations in both denominations. So if you are part of an open and affirming congregation, I plead with you, go by that table and connect with the LGBTQIA network. Same thing with Creation Care Network in the United Church of Christ. We have Green Chalice congregations. You heard Joyce talk about this congregation being both of those. If your congregation is or wishes to be Green Chalice, drop by the Creation Care Network, find out a little bit more. Great connections, and we can be doing more together.
Yeah. Veteran Ministry Network is another one that we have, and actually, we have disciples partners in that network as well. So there are a number of, all of our congregations have veterans. Some of them have re-entered the world following their service quite well, others not as well. And there is a call for our congregations to provide safe and healthy space for veterans and how we tend the needs of veterans. That's what that network is seeking to provide resourcing for.
Another natural that connection that has been happening kind of organically is the Youth Ministry Network in the United Church of Christ and our Cairo and CYF commissions. Those are our names for middle school and high school youth. A natural connection that I know that they are already doing some great work.
Yeah. Another one is we're aware that we have a number of trained spiritual directors in each of our communions, and we're working on developing a way to bring our spiritual directors together, and we're calling it Spiritual Companions Network right now, so that we can really lift up this ministry, but also have it be discovered as the real gift that it is for the whole church in terms of nurturing and cultivating the spiritual life. Now, this sounds like a no-brainer, doesn't it? But a lot of folks are unaware of the rich resource that having spiritual directors in our midst carries, and we're wanting to really lift this up in our life.
The next network is one that I'm really passionate about, partly because I'm an urban aficionado. If you go to any of my social media networks, you'll see that phrase, urban aficionado. People think then that I don't care about rural churches or about small churches, which is absolutely not true. But we don't have any kind of a network for those. And so this network will help both rural and small churches, wherever they might be, to network. Because I do think that there are very particular perspectives and needs and hopes and dreams and ways of being church in small church.
Yeah. As we mentioned earlier, the Global Ministry Network, the Global Ministry connections that we have, and we're developing a network there, a network for faith formation, a network for generosity and stewardship, and another one for part-time ministry. So what you can see here is we are beginning to imagine together possibilities of the way in which our wisdom and energy can be brought together meaningfully to empower the work that we are called to do together in the life of the world.
So let's use this time with our two denominations together very well. You'll have the network time that we just described, and we will also have some time over lunch that will be much more informal, much more casual, around some kind of affinities,
Right.
some identity connections. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But this is a chance for you to get to know people in your own denomination and in the other denomination. And let us do God's work in ever more effective and powerful ways because of what we have done here today.
Yeah, it's our shared honor to serve you as we continue to do this work, and just know you are a blessing to us, and we hope we are to you as well. Thank you so much.
When I was regional minister in the Christian Church capital area, I had the privilege of working with a whole host of clergy and lay leaders. Some of them were classic in the sense that they were in a recognized congregation in the disciples, but there are also wonderful pastors serving other congregations. And I reached out to one of those pastors serving not a UCC church, not a disciples church, but a completely other church, and got to know the Reverend Elizabeth Hagan. Well, I fell in love with her. She's brilliant. You can read her bio. She's gifted. She's funny. And we struck up a really strong kinship. One of the things I really love about Elizabeth is that she understands that personal story can remain personal, but sometimes that personal story might help others along the journey. And the first book that she wrote, called Birthed, about her family's infertility and what it means in this culture, especially in church culture, to be a woman without children. I'm proud to say that Chalice Press published that, our own publishing house, and if you have not read it, even though that story is not my story, that story touched me deeply. Then I had the privilege, after I moved away, of offering a reference for Elizabeth, and she became the senior pastor of First Christian Church of Athens, Georgia. And in that process, in the middle of COVID, wrote yet another book. And so what a gift it is for us to have. And that book is called Brave Church, and she'll talk a whole lot more about that. But I'm going to stop talking because it's her time, and we'll turn that over to her. But I want you to welcome my colleague and friend, Reverend Elizabeth Hagan.
Okay, wonderful. I am so happy to be with you today. And if I can type, we can start. Hold on. And we have my slides back there, ready to go. Well, I am so glad to be with you all the way from Georgia. I came a day early thinking I would not make it here if I did not come a day early. My family has been on hurricane watch. I got pictures from my husband tying down our trash cans to our patio. But everything is fine. We didn't even lose power, which is a miracle beyond a miracle, but many other families in our community are really struggling. So as I go back tomorrow, that's what I will be interacting with. So I know that there are many of you who have family that were in the path of the storm, and there's so much devastation that happened over the past few days, and we can all add our prayers and our offerings of time and energy to help those who were affected. But today, I am so glad to be able to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, which is how it is that we are brave. How it is that we talk about things that nobody wants to talk about and don't kill each other in the process. And I'm beginning this morning to think about There we go. How did I become interested in having hard conversations? Because I don't think that anybody wakes up on a given Saturday morning, like you did today, and think, I want to have a hard conversation today, did you? But let me tell you this, as Alan was sharing with you just a few moments ago, the first kind of pull in my heart toward writing, which is and publishing, which is a big endeavor. I don't recommend it unless you really feel called, I'll tell you that, but was toward telling our story about infertility. And so when my book came out, Birth, Finding Grace Through Infertility, I began doing the things that authors do when they write books. I went to churches, I asked to speak at conferences, and you know what happened to me? People, even though the title of my book was Birth, Finding Grace Through Infertility, people didn't want me to talk about infertility. I had a pastor who told me, I think that's a little bit too personal of a subject. No, mind you, that 1 in 8 couples in America will struggle with infertility or miscarriage. And 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in miscarriage. He said, that sounds a little too much like sex. I don't think you need to talk about that here. So let me tell you what happened. I began to create workshops about grief that nobody wanted to talk about and sit in rooms like in conferences like this and hear stories. And what I found out is that infertility is not the only subject that nobody wants to talk about, especially in church. I had laundry lists of so many things that people told me. And I found out that listening to others helps me know that I was not alone. I also had a growing concern as a pastor about the things that people would whisper to me in my office. I mean, I literally mean whisper about the truths of their own story that they didn't feel like if anyone in our congregation knew, that they would not be accepted. So what were we going to do about it? Well, I'll tell you this. I want to share with you one of my favorite Barbara Brown Taylor quotes. There's so many, but she said in her book, Holy Envy, if I could make my neighbors up, I would surely love them, but these are not the neighbors I have gotten. Anybody feel that way about the election in Ohio? Okay. But we have neighbors, and they have stories, and they are stories that need to be heard and told and lived out. So how it is that we begin to talk about them. So I want you to do this. I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want you to share with them what is one topic that your congregation right now is not talking about, and why you think that is. Turn to your neighbor and say, what is one topic your congregation is not talking about, and what is that? As we come back together, I was noticing that there was not silence in the room. You all certainly had a lot to talk about because your congregation is not talking about something right now that you think it should talk about. And I'd be curious to know your reasons as to why when you meet me in the book table later on today. But this morning, I'm thinking about what happens when we don't talk about things. What happens is that I think this thing called loneliness begins to take root in our souls because we feel like our story or our experience or the way in which we see the world is not welcome and we do not belong in community. Jeannie Allen, author of a book that I've come to respect called Find Your People, Building Community in a Lonely World, writes this. She says, we've replaced intrusive real conversations with small talk. We've substituted soul-bearing, deep, connected living with text and only a night out every once in a while because superficial stuff seems more manageable and less risky. Is that true of your experience? So, my friends, how can we open new space for braver conversations? That is the agenda topic for this morning's talk. And I want to say, we need tools to make it possible, which is why Brave Church came into the world, how it is that we can actually tackle tough topics together. A tool that's not the only tool. There's tons of tools that help people do this, but it is a tool that I helped to create because I know that the how we have difficult conversation is often the thing that stops us because we think, well, I don't know how to do this, or what if I really offend someone and they never speak to me again, or what if my congregation splits and breaks up and we have so few people anyways, so why would we even start this process? This morning, I want to offer this. We move from safe space to brave space. Are these words that you've heard before? I want to tell you about some research that I encountered that really struck a chord with me. Back in the time when I was telling you, I was trying to speak about my book, Birth, and finding no one wanted to talk about infertility, and no one wanted to talk about other things either. I encountered the research of two folks, Brian Arrow and Christy Clemens, who were New York University student affair educators. And they were finding in their university life, as many know who work in campus ministry, there's all kinds of trainings to help students learn how to work together and find ways to talk about things in a more helpful way. And in their case, at New York University, they were struggling with the hard topic of racism, and finding that their students didn't seem to ever move together closer, that they just simply stayed in their own sides and didn't actually have the conversations they needed to have to feel more connected to one another. And so what they did is they created a series of rules about how you move from safe space to brave space. And as I read this research, I had these light bulb moments go off. I'm like, wouldn't that be amazing if that could be adapted to the church? Because if I know anything about church folks, we love our safe space. But brave space might be the answer. So this morning, I want to teach you how you might move from safe space to brave space, starting with what looks like safety that you might feel comfortable with, and how you take that a step further and become more brave. So, first off, safe space says, let us agree to disagree. How many of you have said this in the last year to someone? Okay. I have a friend named Carrie who also works in student affairs throughout the country, and she paraphrased this in the best way that I love. She says, agree to disagree is basically saying, I like you too much to fight with you. And it is so true. But I think what happens, not that there may or may not be a time for I'd agree to disagree, but you know what happens when we agree to disagree? We shut down conversation. And we stop talking, and most of all, we stop listening. It may be safe, but it's not brave. So, what do we do about that? Well, Brave Church rule number 1 says we accept conflict and we commit to the way of kindness. Okay, I'm going to have you repeat after me. Are you ready? Conflict isn't bad. I say that because we don't really believe it as much as you just said it. I mean, I don't like conflict. I like everyone to like me, and I like to be in peaceful situations. But any good psychologist will tell you one of the most powerful relationship tools is a cycle of rupture and repair. And what that means is, how many of you have ever had a big fight with someone you love? How many of you have been able to repair that relationship with that person that you love through intentional, hard conversations? And how did you feel after that was over? Did you feel more connected to them? Did you feel like you understood them more? Did you feel like you entered part of their story that you may not have otherwise had an opportunity to connect with? Did that happen to you? Well, that happened because, repeat after me, conflict isn't bad. Okay. And we commit to the way of kindness. If your churches are like the churches I know in Georgia, conflict is a way of life in congregations. I don't know if you're going through a conflict right now, or you went through one, or you're thanking God you're not in one right now. But if you're entering with a group of people, and I'm going to tell you more this afternoon about how this looks logistically, the first brave church rule that you would agree to have brave conversations is to accept that conflict is inevitable, but you're going to handle it with kindness. Another safe space idea is that you just don't take things too personally. How many of you have ever had that thrown in your face? Like, you're just too sensitive. Don't take things too personally. It's almost as if in that situation you have to become a non-person, like your feelings don't matter, right? Or that if you feel hurt or disrespected, well, you just took things too personally. Just don't do that, and everyone will feel safe. But if you want to move to a brave conversation, what that is going to look like is rule number 2. Take responsibility for how your own words are received. I tell you this, just because you did not mean to hurt someone does not mean that their feelings are not hurt. I feel like I need to say that again. Just because you did not intentionally mean to hurt someone by the things you said, it doesn't mean that somebody else's feelings are not going to be hurt. I tell you, if you want to enter a brave space in your congregation, you have to be a person who's willing to take responsibility for how your words have hurt someone, even if it is not intentional. It just seems like I need to pause there because that's just such a big deal. Well, let me say this. Safe space, another thing that safe space might say is that comfortable is always best. Isn't that what we say about our churches? We want people to feel at home when they walk in, right? We want people to feel comfortable, which is why we put cushions in our pews, right, if they're uncomfortable. And if we're not nice to them, right, they're not going to come back, and we don't want that either. We feel safe when folks are comfortable. But comfortable does not move conversations forward at all. So the third brave church rule is that we challenge. We challenge, but we ask permission to do so first. I'll tell you why. If you're in a group setting having a hard conversation, or even you're in a one-on-one setting having a hard conversation, there will be times when someone said something where there is a great opportunity for challenge. You don't just allow the point to be said in the universe and the airspace and just move forward. There's times when ideas that are homophobic or racist need to be called out. But not everybody is ready for your forging through challenge on any given day. You ask permission before you do so. I also make a note here and say that it's important to ask permission first, because sometimes folks, not only are they not in a mental space or spiritual space or emotional space to be challenged, sometimes people do not want to be the representative, the sole representative of their particular group of interest. I'll say, for example, now that you know that infertility has been a part of my story, sometimes I don't want to talk about it. Some days I don't want to tell you all the details of the miscarriages I've had. Maybe other days I do, but I appreciate when someone asks, do you mind sharing that? Or can I challenge your ideas on that before they just expect, because they read that in my bio, that that's something that I want to talk about or engage in. So, brave church rule number 3, we challenge, but we ask permission to do so. Another concept of safe space that we are thinking about is that safe space just says respect others in a group. Haven't you heard that in any group setting, that you've ever had a group covenant? You said, we need to respect everyone. Well, the problem with that, while it is a wonderful ideal, is that we don't quite know what respect means. Isn't that true? So, let's move to Braid Church rule number 4, is that we graciously receive feedback if someone feels disrespected. Let me tell you a story that might make this more plain. Years ago, I was pastor of Washington Plaza Baptist Church. I used to be a Baptist, but you still like me. I was pastor of Washington Plaza Baptist Church in Reston, Virginia. And during that time, our church, which had some racial diversity, was beginning a partnership with a traditional African American church called Martin Luther King Christian Church that was right next door. And during that time, we began to have joint Bible studies together, which was wonderful. We began to have some shared worship services together. I preached at the church's anniversary service. They came over and celebrated our deacons' ordinations. It's becoming a beautiful partnership, and I felt very comfortable in that. Well, on one such occasion, we were gathering for a shared service, and my job, or our church's job, was to print the bulletin. So all the information was sent to me. I got the names, I got the scripture readings, all the things. I was proofing the bulletin. Everything was fine. I was in that particular setting. The title, we never put titles by any person in our church. I was never Reverend Elizabeth Hagan. I was just Elizabeth Hagan in the program. Well, what happened was, that's how I viewed myself. And so all the names from Martin Luther King Christian Church that I go over, I just wrote their names the same way I wrote mine. Oh, you guys know how the story's gonna go. Well, what happened was, and I was respecting the church the way I felt respect. Anyway, the bulletin got back to them, and I got a phone call from my dear friend, who's still my dear friend, Pastor Jeannie Robinson Casey. She said, Elizabeth, this ain't gonna work. I said, why? She said, we have been historically disrespected for years. Titles are very important in our congregation. Everyone has a title. Not only am I Reverend Doctor, and please make me Reverend Doctor in the program, but these readers, this is gonna be Sister so-and-so, this is gonna be Brother so-and-so, this is gonna be Trustee, this is gonna be Deacon. They all need to have titles. And I could have been like, what? It's my bulletin. I'm printing the way I want it. I could have. But it was a moment that challenged me in a brave way to graciously receive feedback when someone felt disrespected. Brave Church rule number 4. Well, safe space might come at a situation and say, don't attack anyone and don't have hateful language. Well, that's wonderful. And we want that. And I'm concerned about our world being safe in this way. If you're with me, will you please say amen to that? Amen. But we think if we don't have a fist fight in the church parking lot after a business session or after a board meeting or an elders meeting, then we're doing really great. Because Brave Church rule number 5 challenges us to this, to use I language instead of you language, to challenge ideas and not people. How often do our difficult conversations become battles of us being pitted against each other? This whole concept of using I language, it speaks from my experience. I get to say, I have ownership on my experience. And that's truly the only thing that I can represent. I don't know what's in your heart. I don't know what your experience has been, and there is no way in which I should assume that I do. I do not need to challenge a person. I need to respect their full humanity and their beautiful God-given image of the divine that is in them. But maybe there might be times, as we go back to rule number 3, that we challenge ideas, not people. So, to review, here's the 5 Brave Church rules all in one slide. I want you to look at this. Look at the list. And all this is laid out in Brave Church if you'd like to have a look at the book later. But I want you to look at this list and think to yourself, which one of these rules would you personally struggle with the most? Which one of these 5 rules would you personally struggle with the most? I want you to turn to the opposite side of a neighbor that you were talking to earlier, and I want you to share with them which one of these rules would you personally struggle with following the most in a group or one-on-one conversation. Go. We come back together, I'm curious, who said number 1 would be the most difficult for you? 1? What about 2? Okay. What about 3? Oh, wow, no one wants to challenge. Very impressive. What about 4? Okay. And what about 5? Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. You're in the struggle bus with all of us this morning. Well, I want to go to another question, which is, why is this important? Why is this important? As I started this morning by saying, nobody wakes up and says, I want to have a hard conversation today. Bravery, when we move in that way, it presents discomfort to our system. Who likes that? This is not something maybe that we naturally gravitate toward, but I want to answer, at least for me personally, why I think this is God's work. And why this moment in our time asks us and asks the church, you beautiful people out there, to be more brave. So, let me tell you a story. This is a picture, this is a COVID picture. And you know what I mean when I say COVID picture, where everyone was doing their own haircuts. And you wondered if you brushed your hair in days. And this was my COVID family. I now have, this is in the picture you see my daughter, Amelia, who was 4 at the time. She's now 8. You see our adopted Kenyan daughter named Sherlyn, who was in college and got stuck at our house for months, not being able to go back to school because of virtual learning. Who you don't see in this picture, who's in my family now, is my son Andrew, who just turned 2. You see my husband Kevin. Well, I want to tell you what happened in COVID times. It was around the time in which Brave Church, I was receiving from my editors my final edits, and I had all this work to do. Well, I know we don't like to go back in our minds to COVID times. But do you remember what your life was like then? My life was pretty chaotic because I was pastor of the Palisades Community Church in Washington, D.C. at the time. I had a part-time job doing social media for a nonprofit. I had this preschool kid who couldn't go to preschool, and I was having circle time every morning at 9 a.m. with her stuffed animals and trying to keep her busy so she didn't destroy the house. I also had a young adult with some special needs and trauma challenges living in my home. It was crazy. And so Upper Room, who published Brave Church, came to me and said, okay, you've got to get this done in the next 2 weeks. And I looked at them and said, no. There's no way I can do that. And I said, I'm a real finisher, I like to get things done. But I said, I just don't know if I can do this. And honestly, I don't even know if this book even matters. I don't know that it matters. The world is falling apart. Everything's on fire right now. There's no way that this is going to matter. I'll send you the money back that you already gave me. I don't even care. That was a lot, is where my soul was at the time. But then I tell you, in June, it wasn't June, it was May of 2021. What happened? George Floyd was murdered. And our country began to have different conversations. And things began to happen in my neighborhood. This is a picture of my church out in the streets at one of the many Washington, D.C. marches. Not only speaking of George Floyd's murder, but speaking of the fact that Black Lives Matter and all of the many senseless deaths that had happened over recent years, and what were you going to do about it? And in that moment, I realized that, COVID was happening, and I was exhausted, and I just wanted to hide in my bathroom, which I did many times, for my own children. Please don't bother me. I had many a conversation with my best friend in the toilet room. Anyway, but I tell you, this work matters. Not just my work, but your work. Because we must have these difficult conversations. Because people's lives are at stake. Even if it brings us discomfort, even if people in our church don't want to come along with us. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. So, let me tell you this. This is my answer as to why. My answer is that people are hurting, people are dying, all because we are scared to be brave. Do you feel that in your heart this morning? That's the thing that kept me going when I thought, this project is silly. I can just let it go. There are people who are hurting. I'll say it again. There are people who are dying, all because we are scared to be brave. I can't tell you how many people have come to me, and I know many other pastors in the room would say the same thing. People who have said to me, I like what you stand for, and I like your Jesus, but I can't come to your church because you don't feel very authentic to me. Or, I like you and I like your Jesus, but I can't come to your church because you're doing the same old boring things. And I don't feel like this relates to my life at all. But people are hurting, and people are lonely, and people are dying because we're not doing anything about it because we're scared to be brave. And I tell you this morning, for better or for worse, we are the church. And do people want to think that God doesn't love them? Because ultimately, when we have hard conversations that maybe bring us discomfort, what we're doing is something extremely powerful because we are including them. We are including their stories. We're helping them feel less alone. And we're most importantly doing this beautiful thing called showing up as God's presence in their life. This is a picture of some folks who recently joined my church down there in Athens, Georgia. And I tell you, the young folks that are coming to my church, you know why they're coming? They're coming because they say, I thought church wasn't for me. But you are talking about mental health, and you're talking about racism, and you're talking about intimate partner violence, and you're being honest about your own story about infertility and miscarriage, and somehow that makes us feel like we fit in here, and that our questions are welcome, and that our doubts are not turned away. So I ask you this morning, I know you feel discomfort over this topic. I know that brave conversations are not something that you just strive to do, but I can absolutely tell you this morning that if you engage in this work of learning how to be brave, then you are going to be building more authentic, vulnerable, beautiful community where you feel like you know your neighbors and your neighbors know you, and you don't have to start with that whole ideal of, well, if I only had better neighbors, life would be better. I'll tell you this, one of the questions that I've gotten from folks as I've spoken about this in different places around the country since Brave Church comes out, I've had people tell me, Pastor, this sounds great, but my church is not safe, so how could it even be brave? So I don't know if that's how you feel about your congregation this morning. As you think about your faith community, maybe it doesn't even feel safe, that you are having fights, that you don't feel comfortable, that you can't show up as yourself. And if that is you, my heart is with you, and I say, please find at least, let's move on. Let's find a safe community. And then let's begin to move toward brave. I would also say that people have said to me, well, that sounds nice, that whole brave stuff, but that's, I don't know if I can. Well, I will say this, not every circle, not every group is going to have the capacity to be brave. Don't hear me say that it's some kumbaya in the wilderness, all holding hands, something that I know is possible for every single person. But I do believe there are circles of influence that you could grab folks into and begin to have these different types of conversations. And I think it starts even on a most basic level with your people that you see on a most regular basis. Think about your family members that you're closest to. Think about your colleagues at your workplace or in your congregation. Think about not letting a conflict fester the next time one comes up and sitting down and saying, hey, we just really need to talk through this. Or, I'm feeling this way, I just want to tell you. You know, learning all of these brave church rules, you know, it's kind of been annoying to me because I realize that the whole world doesn't abide by them. I've been in settings where I want to be like, well, don't you care that I was disrespected? You're supposed to care that I feel disrespected even if you didn't intentionally mean harm. Well, that's not always going to happen. But with folks in which you can connect, I invite you to lean into those hard places because ultimately, to me, that's where the most beautiful things happen. I don't know how we are with time. If it's possible, we can maybe have some questions, if folks have some questions from the audience. But before we get to that, I want to share with you this, one of my favorite Anne Lamott quotes. How many great quotes are there from Anne Lamott? But she says, you safely assume you created God in your own image when it turns out that God hates all the same people that you do. I mean, it's funny, but I almost feel like this is something we should put on our mirrors or put next to our TVs with all the political ads that I know are coming on your screen right now. That there is beautiful things in our neighbors that we may not see or we may not know about if we don't spend the time engaging and getting to know them. And so, as we think about the process of continuing to be brave, I'm wondering what has bubbled up for you that I might be helpful to you on as you think about becoming a braver congregation today. There is a microphone. Oh, we got a mic right here. So if you have a question for me, raise your hand and it will be brought to you. Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to know if your book is for sale here.
Of course.
And if so, where?
Yes. It's right back there. I'll be happy to connect with you after
Thank
the
you.
service. Thank you. Oh, and I've got a model in the back. Thank you. Holding up in the glass. Wonderful.
When a church has been hurt in the past and the healing has not taken place, and you're new to that church and you want to help them move forward, how can I be bold and brave without being disrespectful or not coming across as not caring?
So the question, I'm just going to repeat it, make sure everyone's here. So you're saying if you're connecting with a congregation that's been hurt in the past, how can you connect with them without coming across as being disrespectful or to move forward? Well, if there's anything I know about how brave conversations or any good conversations start, it always starts with taking the I out of the conversation. It starts with, pardon me for saying shut up, but just shutting up and listening to someone else and engaging in the story that they have to share. I think that's one of the most powerful things that happen when you're new in a community, is not to show up assuming that you have the answers. I would not recommend taking this book and saying, I went to a great workshop this weekend and we're going to abide by these 5 rules right now. Like, that would be a disaster. Please don't. But I do think that if you make space to hear people's stories and people learn that you're doing so in a non-judgmental way, which can be a very powerful tool, the floodgates will open and you will hear more things. And so, and I truly believe that leaders, and there's so many wonderful leaders in this room, I think bravery starts with us. And I'm so glad for an opportunity to say that, because your leadership and the way you speak of your stories and the way that you hold things in tension in your own life sets the tone for the rest of the congregation. And I think beautiful things can happen if we show up in our most brave selves and willing to share a piece of our story with others. Thank you.
We have time for one more.
Good morning, and thank you. I think you started to answer this question a little bit just a moment ago, but I was just curious, in getting to brave spaces, do you see as going from safe to brave as kind of a continuum? Or if you could talk just a little bit more about that. Question.
He said, how do you get from safe to brave spaces? Is it a continuum? Well, I think the baseline is safe space. If we can talk about setting the tone for that, it's the starting point. But I think that brave space takes a lot of mental energy and spiritual energy and even physical energy, and I don't think we can stay in a brave space. I have conversed with a lot of folks who do this work, and then they talk about how if you know that you're about to have a brave conversation with someone, or you're going to have a brave church group meeting, well, plan something safe after that. You know, plan to go sit at the house of your best friend, or go plan to take a walk in a beautiful place, or plan to clear your schedule after you've had a really difficult conversation, because you got to rejuvenate your spirit and your soul, because it does take a lot of work to do this. But like I said, it's worth it. And knowing that maybe we may not get it all right. I mean, of course, we're not. We're going to mess up. And so any brave church meeting, which I'm going to talk about the logistics of how this looks this afternoon in our session together, any brave church meeting, which I hope that you might have with some of folks in your congregation, begins with reviewing the 5 brave church rules and covenanting together that this is the intention in which you're going to live with each other, and also giving each other the ability to call one another out if you're kind of deviating from those guidelines, knowing that it can easily happen. Thank you so much. Well, it has been a gift to be with you this morning, and we talked about some hard things, and if you're like me, let's pray as we conclude our time together. Will you join me in this corporate prayer? Holy Spirit, teach us again to be brave. May we cease to be annoyed that others are not what we wish they be, since none of us is what we wish we were. Even when conflict comes, may we see people not as problematic, but as beloved. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was astounding, actually, and convicting, because I don't know about you, but we are a progressive-leaning congregation hiding on a prominent corner in our very conservative small-town community. And I think we need to quit hiding and find a way to have brave conversations. So thank you. Have an opportunity now to feature some of our contributors to this event so that our costs will remain low. And I'm excited to first introduce from Disciples Church Extension Fund, Brock McCracken. Brock, there you are. Come on up.
Thank you so much. It is good to be with you all. I represent Disciples Church Extension Fund, as she said, and I bring you greetings, of course, on behalf of the general ministries of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. What is Disciples Church Extension Fund? Well, at the most basic level, we are a savings and loan style institution. So for our UCC friends, that is how we are similar to Cornerstone Financial. For our disciples, it's individuals like you and congregations that invest with us, that allow us to do the work that we do in lending to churches. We do have some investment specials right now, so I would invite you to consider those, as loan demand has been very high. We are actively seeking new investors. Beyond that, though, Disciples Church Extension Fund does a number of services. We are certainly a service organization. Certainly in the case of capital fundraising efforts, which I am delighted to be a part of the major fundraising campaign that the Christian Church in Ohio is undergoing right now. And furthermore, am delighted, of course, to be a premier sponsor of this, a part of being a premier sponsor to this event. Beyond that, we do offer disaster response, as has been mentioned here. We are a part of New Church Ministry. My colleague in New Church Ministries talks about we're all a part of New Church Ministry. This landscape is changing so very much that we are all a part of doing New Church, or transformational ministries are a way that we can partner with you in thinking about doing things differently. So in that vein, it is my strong desire to be partners with you in ministry. So if your congregation is thinking of doing anything new, anything different, I would love to be a part of that conversation and to see how we might better partner with you all in doing that ministry. Thank you again for the opportunity to be in front of you, and I look forward to having conversations with you.
And next, representing Phillips Theological Seminary is Leslie Sear. Sorry, come on, Leslie.
I love it. Jeff, where's my woohoo? Woohoo! Thank you so much. I am Leslie Lassier, representing Phillips. Of course, Theological Seminary, what do we do there? We educate. We expand horizons. We transform ministries. That's what we do there. I bring you greetings from our outgoing president, Dr. Nancy Claire Pittman, who will be leaving us on Monday. And then I bring you greetings from Gary Kidwell, former director of Christian Church Foundation, who becomes president on Tuesday. So there is a bit of transition in our hierarchy, but we are so grateful to just get to be at spaces like this. I love this combined iteration of the gathering and assembly. I have a table out there, and I will say on behalf of all of our exhibitors, take our stuff. We don't want to take it home. I think probably a lot of you have already heard me say that. Please take this home. But there are so many wonderful, useful things too, like eyeglass cleaners, water bottles, things like that. But I do want to highlight a couple different things that we're doing at the seminary. The first is the thing that I get to be I'm privileged to get to lead. It's the Center for Ministry and Lay Training from my woohoos, are my alums and my current students. This is the certificate program that is completely online for church members, for commissioned, licensed pastors. It's an amazing program, if I say so myself. But talk to Jeff, talk to Alan, he knows a lot about this, and your commissions on ministries. But we really help students master the ministerial practices, but also Elizabeth Dilley and Renee Jackson have helped me and our other faculty members to help students in our UCC classes and how they can use this for the marks for faithful and effective service and ministry. So take a look at that program. If you feel an inkling or maybe this is right for you, get your toe in the water. This is where to start. I will also say we, of course, have 4 amazing master's degrees, and we have our DMin programs as well. The important piece about that are twofold. The first is we offer all disciples and UCC students 80% tuition aid grants. So that makes, yes. And look for an announcement in the next 3 weeks. We will be announcing some student debt relief kind of work that we're really wanting to take and tackle for our students. Yes, student debt should not be something that our churches are saddled with, and we want to help in the ways that we can at Phillips. The other piece is that 60 to 80% are for our masters, but it's also for our Doctor of Ministry classes and our students. And we want to introduce our newest Doctor of Ministry study, which is Leadership in Public Ministry and Social Transformation. This brand new track joins our public prayer and public speaking homiletics track, as well as our improvisational ministry track. But it has just really been a wonderful thing to have our Masters in Social Justice program, and now this new DMin that will be a part of that. One final thing is that Phillips is expanding. We are building a building currently that we would like to invite. It's not only going to be student housing for when our students do come to campus. It'll be an affordable student housing for them. But it will also be conference space for outside groups, and we are hoping and wanting all of congregations and disciples and UCCs, the iterations, the groups, to make pilgrimages to Tulsa. Tulsa, as you know, is the site of the Tulsa Race Massacre, and it's also a place with rich indigenous people, resources, and museums, and really to just come to experience those programs, and then to be able to stay at our conference space, host meetings, debrief about those experiences that you have had as a group at those places. But we are so grateful to get to be partners with each of you here, and thank you for having us.
Are we set, Becca, with the video? We are inheritors of a story that we did not begin. We carry the baton of a legacy of faith that has been handed to us by those who've gone before us. And we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, yes? So it seems not only fitting, but also the right thing to do for us to pause and to remember those who in the past year or so, who have been leaders in our midst, have now gone into life eternal, but whose legacy and energy persists in us. We have been shaped by these we will remember. So with great thanks to Reverend Jonathan Bradner, we have a lovely video that is our necrology, our time of remembering. So I invite you to receive this in a spirit of remembrance and thanksgiving. And when the video is done, invite us to a moment of silence and then prayer. So let us now remember together. Alan reminded me that you who are disciples do this every 2 years. We do it once a year, so it's quite a rich gathering. Will you join your heart with mine for a word of prayer? Almighty and ever-living and ever-loving God, we give you thanks and praise for these beloved companions on the journey, these leaders who have helped to stretch the longing of our hearts in and toward you. We give you thanks that they are held in your full embrace. And we pray that the legacy of their lives may continue to live in us, in our remembering. Strengthen our commitment to your will and way of love made known in Jesus Christ. May their self-giving increase our capacity to give. May any generosity of spirit they bestowed on us become more and more alive in our words and actions, in the ministry and mission you give us in the season that is ours to bear your love in the world. So as you hold them, continue to hold us in our grieving and in our gratitude. We pray all of this in the name of your Son and our Savior, Jesus the Christ, in whose name it is our delight to pray. Amen. So I want to share with you a little bit about what's ahead for the rest of the morning in through lunchtime. This is going to feel like a whiplash of feeling, but I'm going to suggest that we're about to engage in a little speed dating, okay? Let me describe what I mean by that. Alan and I shared earlier about this rich engagement around networks that we believe is not just a thing over here, but really increasingly central to our life together and a wonderful and rich growth in the way in which we do ministry. But what are they? And who are they? And how do I get connected? You might be asking yourself. We're going to have an opportunity to have a little break, but then at 10:45, so you're going to have some time to mingle and visit exhibitors and so forth. But at 10:45, we are going to have an opportunity in the fellowship hall for you to meet at tables. Each of the networks will have a table, and you'll have an opportunity to meet folks who are involved in those networks. There are handouts with QR codes so that if you want to get connected, you can just click on that QR code and you'll be led to a form that you can sign up. And let me just say, signing up for a network does not mean that you have committed for life to something, okay? The difference between networks and committees is that they're gathered by passion and they recognize that we have an arc to our energy. And what may be a deep commitment for a season may not be a commitment for the rest of eternity, okay? So networks are intended to have that flexibility. That said, the best way to find out more is to sign up. And if you sign up, you'll get more information more directly focused to you. And our goal is to help us all get more connected around these really vitally important parts of our ministry. So that's what that is about. So the network time, that time to learn, will go for an hour. And you can just go at your pace. linger as long as you wish at any of the tables, or try to go to all of them, whatever your heart desires. But to be aware that that's going to be happening. I want to ask the leaders to be sure, the network leaders, to be sure to head out a bit ahead of time here to get set up so that we're really ready to go at 10:45. So we're running well with our schedule this morning, so I know there will be plenty of time, but I wanted to make that special note. Then let me say a little bit about lunch. I know it's not quite that time, but important information here. Some of you ordered gluten-free chicken bacon Caesar wraps. You know who you are. That has, because of some supply issues, been changed to a Harvest chicken salad sandwich, also gluten-free. If you want a different option, see Becca Hoskins. Becca has one of those Ask Me buttons, and she's just very gracious in terms of helping to make all these connections. So she'll do her best to accommodate your need if chicken salad isn't your thing, is what she told me. Okay, so we have some flexibility, but we wanted you to be aware of that change and not be surprised when you got to lunch. Now, lunch is going to be at 11:45. Actually, the network piece is going to go for 45 minutes. We'll have a break and a quick turnaround for lunch. There will be boxed lunches. And we're aware that there are groups that might find it helpful just to have some time to eat lunch together. And we want to provide that opportunity. We're calling them, very creative title, conversation groups. Okay? So, and there are signs on the doors to the rooms in the hallway, but let me give you a quick sweep of what those are. We're going to have a worship and music group that is going to be hosted by Andrea and Christopher, and so that's one. Clergy women, a church building and renovation, and Brock McCracken is going to be hosting that. A BIPOC gathering, LGBTQIA queer clergy gathering, young clergy, and you can determine what that means for you. Interim ministry gathering, administrative support staff. So I know we're going to say our thank yous again, but this is going to be hosted by Jenny and Becca. Jenny Stoddard Bernard and Becca Hoskins. I've known Becca since she was, okay. Are there two more amazing people than Jenny and Becca? I don't think so, and we're going to say it again, but I just, yes. Yes. There will be a gathering for youth, and then also a global ministry network, a book study group. And that, am I right? Is that in the fellowship hall? Correct? Okay, in the fellowship hall. Thank you. And Becca, I see you back there. My apologies, friend, on the name thing. She knows it. What's that? And there are books, yes. So the Global Ministry Network has been looking at Mitra Raheb's book, Decolonizing Palestine. And actually, we were blessed to have Mitra Raheb on a webinar very recently, who came in to us live from Palestine. He recently served, he's now retired, but had served as the pastor of Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem. So that's the selection, just to give you a sense of the sweep. Again, there will be signs on the rooms as you go out your way, and that will be clear. Alan, what am I missing?
Just to let you know, these are kind of self-directed. There may be some leadership like that you've named, but there's no goal other than for you to just be together and enjoy each other's company. So don't arrive and sit there going, okay, who's going to start this? It's really just self-directed and for you to connect with one another. And of course, there are lots of spaces in the building. If you don't want to go to any one of those, just have a good time. Find someone to chat with and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I might add, this might be a good chance to practice gently brave space in these. So be the first one to speak, okay, is what I'm saying. You can do that. I know. Because we won't be together before we actually have lunch, I want to offer actually a blessing for our meal. So would you join your heart with mine? Gracious and holy God, we thank you for everything that nourishes and strengthens us in our lives. Your love, food grown from the earth, prepared lovingly, the gift of conversation, the gift of church and all of its incredible complexities and beauty. Pour your blessing as you do again and again on us as we gather around table for conversation, for nourishment, for blessing each other as held by your Spirit. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So you now have a break, right?
Yes, I might invite Reverend Elizabeth Hagan. She might want to go to her table, although she's not listening, but that's fine. I know some of you might want to talk to her right after her presentation, so she'll be available at her table, which is right out here to my right.
Yeah, and then at 10:45, the network time will begin.
There we go. Sorry, I didn't mean to hone in on you, but I just hated for those conversation groups to sit there going, and what are we doing?